Hey everybody, this is Ryan McClanahan with historythroughcards.com. Hope you're all doing very well today. During the pandemic, it gave me an opportunity to pick up and learn uh, cricket and soccer, or football, if you will, if you're from England. And these are two sports that I really wanted to learn more about, and I knew a little bit about them. Obviously, soccer I played as a kid, not very well, but I did. And um, I really was curious about the players involved and really kind of the history of both of these sports. And so I started collecting these cards, and for the most part, I've had to go over to England or France or Germany to pick up these cards, or even Australia, because there's not a whole lot of dealers here who buy or sell either cricket or soccer. And so I found a really interesting story about a gentleman by the name of Harry Gregg right here. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about it. He's really an amazing gentleman. And I'm going to tell you exactly why he is. He's not in the Hall of Fame. I don't know that there's a Hall of Fame that can hold this guy. Um, the Hall of Fame of Life, maybe, if there is such a thing. But this is a really fascinating story, and I did find a few articles, primarily his Irish sports page. He is Irish, actually. So am I, too. And someday I will be in the Irish sports page as well. In any event, let me tell you guys a little bit about this amazing story with Harry Gregg. This is from the Boston Globe, February 18th, 2020. Harry Gregg, at 87, hero of Manchester United air disaster. Associated Press, London. Harry Gregg, a former Manchester United goalkeeper called the hero of Munich for rescuing two teammates as well as a baby and her pregnant mother from the burning fuselage in the 1958 air disaster that killed 23 people, has died. He was 87. Mr. Gregg died peacefully in a hospital surrounded by family, the Harry Gregg Foundation said Monday. A former Ireland international, Mr. Gregg spent 9 years with Manchester United after joining as the world's most expensive goalkeeper in 1957. He played 247 times for the club, including a victory in an FA Cup match against Sheffield Wednesday, 13 days after the air crash in February 1958. The team was returning from a European Cup game when their airplane crashed after refueling in Munich. Mr. Gregg escaped the wreckage, having sustained only a bloody nose, but returned on two occasions to help teammates Bobby Charlton and Dennis Violet, and then a 20-month-old girl and her badly injured mother. Mr. Gregg also helped revive United manager Matt Busby, who survived the disaster. 8 United players died in the crash. He will always be remembered for what he did at Munich. Charlton was quoted as saying by the BBC, but on top of that, he was a really great goalkeeper. In his autobiography called Harry's Game, Mr. Gregg said that the air disaster in Munich established my identity, but the notoriety has come at a price. For Munich has cast a shadow over my life which I found difficult to dispel, he wrote. United said Mr. Gregg's contribution to United could never be underestimated. Although it has been said many times before, we will not see his like again, the club said. In short, he was without question one of the great figures in United's history, and his name and deeds, both on and off the field, will always be remembered and revered. Mr. Gregg was part of the team rebuilt by Busby after the Munich disaster, but never won a medal with United, injury having ruled him out of the win over Leicester in the 1963 FA Cup final and restricting his appearances in two title-winning campaigns in 1964-65 and 1966-67. A real tough nut, United said of its former keeper. Gregg was vocal, commanding, and abrasive. but left Old Trafford for a brief spell at Stoke before an underwhelming managerial career. He was in charge of Shrewsbury, Swansea, Carew, and Carlisle. Mr. Gregg played 25 times for Northern Ireland, including at the 1958 World Cup when he was selected as the best goalkeeper in the competition. When Windsor Park in Belfast was officially reopened following development in 2016, Mr. Gregg was afforded a warm on-field ovation by the fans. 4 years earlier, then United manager Alex Ferguson brought a full-strength squad to Windsor Park to face an Irish League 11 in honor of Mr. Gregg, whose career at United ended without a testimonial. In his program notes, Mr. Ferguson described Mr. Gregg as beyond legendary and a most reluctant hero. Sometimes newspaper accounts don't actually have all the accounting, if you will, so I'm going to tell you about another obituary of his, and it's going to have a little bit more information on the Munich air disaster. This is from the Leader Post, Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada, February 19th, 2020. Goalkeeper rescued passengers in air crash. Harry Gregg, the former Manchester United and Northern Ireland goalkeeper who has died at age 87, was among the survivors of the Munich air crash of 1958 that killed 8 teammates. That a number of others lived was in no small part due to his heroism. On February 6, 1958, the flight home from a European Cup match in Yugoslavia stopped at Munich to refuel. Aboard were 43 people, among them reporters, the players, and club staff. On its third attempt to take off in snowy conditions, the plane plowed through a fence and struck a hut, inside which was a fuel tanker which ignited. When Gregg regained his senses, he crawled out of a tear in the side of the plane, but he went back to rescue a young girl and her pregnant mother. Then he helped evacuate Ray Wood, the unconscious Bobby Charlton, Dennis Violet, manager Matt Busby, and Jackie Blanchflower. Of the 23 who died was Duncan Edwards, who was expected to become the best player of his generation, a mantle that Charleston assumed. Harry Gregg was born at Tobermory Co, Londonderry, on October 27, 1932. At 20, he was playing for Peter Doherty, the Irish manager of Doncaster Rovers, becoming a highly competitive goalkeeper. He made his international debut for Northern Ireland in 1954 and was his country's first-choice goalkeeper. In 1957, Gregg moved to Old Trafford for £23,500 or $40,000, a world record fee for a goalkeeper. A match in Sweden would be his country's greatest performance in the World Cup. Despite damaged ankle ligaments, Gregg had perhaps the most outstanding game of his career. In late 1961, he suffered a shoulder injury that put him out of the game for several months, during which his wife Mavis died of breast cancer at age 26, leaving him with 2 young daughters. Gregg regained his place in the first team and in 1965 married Carolyn Maunders, with whom he would have a son and 3 daughters. He published an autobiography, Harry's Game, with Roger Anderson in 2002. The daughter of his first marriage preceded him. He is survived by his wife and his 5 other children. The Daily Telegraph. One of those other players was Duncan Edwards, and he's actually in the Hall of Fame. He didn't have a whole long career. I think he started playing in 1954, so I think his career was only about 4 years. But in that time, he was an amazing player. I don't actually have a card of his. I wish I did. But again, Harry Gregg said that the events of this and what happened afterwards took a pretty big toll on him. I haven't read his book, but what I think he's referring to is that a lot of people had actually put him on a pedestal and a height that he really couldn't reach as a person, and I don't think that's very fair. I don't know where you would place a person like this. there's a lot of people who are sports players who do some amazing things outside of their sport, and they're not really recognized for that. He is, just because the Munich air crash disaster was in the press, and you can find a lot about this. Again, his book details this as well, and there are other books out there that have a lot of information on the Munich air disaster. And I really had to get a card of his. I really wanted to add one, and I finally found this particular card, which is a 1966 Barrett. And so I didn't really know a whole lot about Barrett. I knew it was a card company, maybe, but what actually it was, after talking to an Irish friend of mine, was that it was is a company. I think it's still around. It is a company that sells gum, chewing gum, but in the form of cigarettes. So just like a cigarette pack, you would have these kind of cards issued, and a lot of these cards actually are found in really nice condition, which is this one right here. And I would love to grab the entire set. I think George Best's rookie is also in here, and you have a lot of other amazing ball players or soccer players or footy players or whatever you want to call them. I still haven't come up with an official name for any of this stuff yet, soccer or football. Anyway, it's a really nice set. Most of it is, I think, pretty cheap. You do have, again, I think George Best's rookie, which is going to land you at least 5 grand. I love the cards over there. I do collect them. My only complaint with the dealers over in Great Britain is that they don't package their cards correctly for overseas shipment. And I see a lot of this stuff coming back in inadequate stuff. There's really, this actually came in an envelope and really nothing else. So I kind of implore the dealers from Australia, Great Britain, France, Germany to really kind of beef up their the way they handle these cards. I mean, I I bought a card from 1914, and it just came with like a wax wrapping and an envelope, and I was pretty mortified, to tell you the truth. I don't think that they really understand what these cards are worth over here, and even there, it's really amazing. And I think too that a lot of these cards they're not over here, they're not found here, so they are worth a little bit more. And there's just so much. I hate to say this, but it's like they have piles of gold that they don't realize what they have. And us Yanks over here, us Americans, are trying to get at this gold, and it's cardboard gold. But for me, I don't really care too much about money when it comes to my hobby. And that's not why I collect. I really have found that collecting this kind of stuff over in Great Britain, France, Germany, Australia, this is really fascinating. This is another avenue that I really kind of needed for my personal growth as a collector and someone who really likes to learn. And at some point, I will read Harry Gregg's book. I just haven't gotten to it yet. I really believe that life is just a series of tests to see what kind of person you are and how you handle these tests. They will really kind of tell you who you are, whether you want them to or not. And you never know in which situation you may be tested or when, or again, how you react to these things. It could be a birth of a child. It could be a death of a parent, or it could be a loss of a job or a girlfriend or a boyfriend. You don't know, and these things come in all shapes and sizes. And for Harry Gregg here, it came in the form of a airplane crash, and he got out, but then he went back into a burning airplane and he pulled out a lot of his teammates or tried to. I find that even in the hobby, it will challenge you as well, and you never know what's going to happen just by even being a card collector and what direction that may take you in as well. And for me personally, I really think that card collecting has done some amazing things. First, I've met so many great people through it, and secondly, it has given me an education that I should have had otherwise, that I didn't get because of my disability. And I have been able to kind of shed a little bit of the anger and frustration that I had as a kid, and because of that, because people treated me differently. This is another reason why I'm telling you today about Harry Gregg, situations that we're placed in, and then how we respond through those situations. And again, what makes us us is usually because of our upbringing and our surroundings and the things that we're involved in, and every single one of them kind of teaches us how we want to behave towards others, how we want to treat other people, and how we do in certain situations, how we react to these. This is going to continue on throughout your life. It just doesn't stop at one single point. Thank you so much for stopping by. I greatly appreciate it as always, and I really appreciate you hearing what I have to say about this. I know a little bit about this is not about the hobby per se. I think maybe there's some things that somebody might need to hear from me, or I might need to hear from somebody else. And so this is one of the reasons why I do what I do. Because again, I love the hobby. I love to hear what you guys have to say, and the hobby is really meant to be shared with others. So again, thanks guys, I appreciate it, and let me know in the comments below what you think about Harry Gregg, or the cards themselves, or the sports. I'm always interested in hearing this stuff. So I will talk to you later. Bye.